Hey, how's it going?
I'm Jeff.
I'm Jason.
And you know what we do? We talk nerdy gear stuff because we're guitar nerds just like you, and we're glad that you're here to listen to us.
Yeah, and we talk a lot.
Reminisce and talk about things. But one of the big things I think that is always being talked about from guitar players is the mystical word. It's a 4-letter word.
Oh, it's a four. It's that.
Is it four?
It's a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
It's the 4-letter word for guitar players.
And it's called
tone.
Right, and we're going to talk a little bit about some things you can do with tone to get a better tone or whatever like that.
Yeah, ways to improve your tone and not spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
Just
we're, obviously buy a better guitar.
Yeah,
we're not going to get.
But we're not even going to say improve tone because that's not a right word.
Yeah, let's get to the
Yeah,
fact.
it's not improved tone because we are not experts on tone. People may hate our tone, so it's the ways to grow your tone or change your tone for situations or just because you're on a tone quest.
Yeah, well, as guitar players, we're always on a tone quest. And I would say that there isn't such a thing as a good tone that you can, pin down, in that what was cool 10 years ago may not be cool today.
Yeah, it's true. And
what's cool today may not be cool 10 years from now.
And some of the tones that you love, though you loved it in that situation, you might not want that tone.
Oh, absolutely. There are things that you hear on records that it's like, if you could solo it, you'd probably be like, right? Like if I had the exact tone that you're like, that's the sound I want, and it fits in the mix and it's perfect. But if I plugged you into it, you might be like, that's not what I want to play.
That's true.
We're both huge Brian May Queen fans.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Love his tone on his record.
So awesome.
I've gotten so close to it in actual situations, and for a moment I love it to do his riff, right? But it's like, but for me, for my music, my stuff, it really isn't me.
Yeah.
So it's like a great thing to record with. It's a great, and it's like when you get there, you're like, yeah, I found the Holy Grail. But it's like, is it really holy?
Yeah.
Not for me.
Yeah, it's just also, once again, too, it's that control factor. Like, Yngwie, I've heard him talk about it, and I've heard there's a great Brian May lesson video when he kicks on his treble booster, and it just noise.
Oh God!
It's just so much noise, and he kicks it off. And he's like, "That was, hey, there's my thing,"
there you go,
kick it all off. Yngwie too, apparently, with his strats, the amount of gain, the way he plays, apparently it's really chaotic and feedbacky, unless you kind of wheel it. If you will. So everybody's tones for everybody.
So we're not going to claim today that we know what the best tone for you is.
Yeah.
But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about things that you can do as tone that, barring buying a new amp, and we're going to stay away from the pedals because obviously pedals are an inexpensive way to change your tone in a box. That'll be another conversation. We'll talk about many different pedals. But just things you can do itself. Like, let's start with the simplest of simple things.
Ah, yes.
Strings.
Guitar strings, yeah.
Right?
They can change. Gauge changes tone, too.
Oh, right. So first thing, one of the things I love is that there are some people that we would consider tone gods. We just mentioned Brian May.
Yeah.
I think I've read recently that Brian May basically uses 8-gauge strings.
Is it 8s? Okay. Yeah, I knew he was light. I know the 8s or 9s, but yeah.
And what's unique about him is his pick, of course.
Yeah, this sixpence.
Right, which is about the size of a dime.
It's about a dime.
Right, and the funny thing is, I heard his tech talking once about how many he drops.
Yeah, he doesn't hold. He doesn't grip his pick at all.
Super light.
So he drops them. They have to buy. He has to go out on tour with bags of them. They have to go find them. They always have to go banks and stuff and try to claim old ones.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But it does. Now it has an interesting tone.
Well, I think
it does. It has a sound.
Right. Well, it has a sound. I think partially because one, it as metal.
Yeah.
It as a round device,
and
it as
serrated edges. Yeah, perforated edges are
serrated.
But same thing. It's all the way around.
And of course, he's always catching those pick harmonics off his thumb.
Little edges of it.
And of course, apparently dropping picks constantly. So that's another thing. We think of him as having great tone for having, and he has the thinnest of strings.
Yeah.
Then let's go to the other spectrum, Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh yeah. 13s.
Notoriously high action.
Yeah. And
13-gauge strings.
Although I think he tuned down a whole step, but still, 13's tuned down. It's still gonna feel like 12s then. It's still I can't bend them.
It's 25-inch scale length.
Yeah.
It's like it's gonna be
it's like pumping iron. Right. For your fingers, it's like iron pumping.
Jimmy Page, of course, is another unique one where.
What is he? 10s or 9s? What do he use?
He uses 9-gauge strings, but his B string.
That's right. You said that. Yeah.
Yeah, is actually
there's G strings.
His G string is a B string.
So they're both. It's double B,
right.
double G.
Yeah.
Because 13s.
We got into a big discussion about this, about how the thickness of a G string is incorrect for the pitch that it is, right? And
it drives me nuts.
you know that I used to do guitar modeling and stuff like that, right? And that was always the most difficult to deal with because it has the most disharmonic and harmonic frequencies that are not related to what you're doing.
It's because technically it may be the same size, maybe not as big, but I think the G string is the largest string of your guitar in the sense of its core. So yeah, your 46 on your 10 gauge is a 46 diameter, but the center core of it, I think, is either the thickness or thinner than the G string.
Right.
So the core of the string is the G string is actually your thickest string in a sense.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for the note and the scale length of that pitch, it's the wrong gauge or the wrong.
It should be wound.
Yeah, it should be a wound string or a tuned up higher pitch to get the tension to change, or a thicker one tuned down. There's actual calculation. I think one like Seymour Duncan DeMarzio has it on their website. I think it's them. Is it them or Diodario does? Or is it a pick company or a string company? I can't remember. Somebody has a calculation for. Maybe it's probably a string company. It's probably Diodario. Has a tension a calculation for tension for matching tensions for scale length. And pitch.
Right.
Yeah. There's some kind of formula for that.
Right. So the first thing is that don't feel as if your string gauge is a definitive thing to tone. Like, for example, we're not going down the subject, but I'll just mention it real fast. Like some people will feel as if a guitar that is heavier sounds better.
Oh, a little bit. Yeah. There's
and
people
some
say that,
people will feel that a lighter guitar that's more resonant sounds
more
better.
Open. Yeah, I get that whole thing. Yeah.
And there's
validity to both.
Right, and that's a bigger conversation. But don't feel as if if I don't play 11 gauge strings, I'm not going to have a good tone. Right. That is not going to be the definitive marker in your tone scenario.
I don't know if people are that way anymore, but man, we used to rag on each other if everybody had. You're playing nines, wimp. No, don't go.
Remember when I played 9.5?
Let's just play tens.
Just play tens, Jesus. Right.
But that was then, and this is now. In reality, as you grow up, wisdom comes with age,
and we're old.
And and you learn that it's whatever it produces. I used to play 11s. I played 11s for about 20 years, and I can't bend them anymore, man. My arthritis is just.
Right.
I'm not giving up. I'm not going to 9, so I'm going to stay at 10s and fight it. But
just go down a half step.
That helps too. Actually, it helps a lot for just tuning down a half step. So.
And I would say that actually sounds better, but that's a whole other conversation which we won't get into. But so there are different types of strings that are out there. So number one, there is of course nickel core strings, which tend there's nickel.
There's nickel core steel plated.
Right, and then there's nickel wound as well.
Nickel core, nickel wound,
right? Which tend to be darker.
Yes, they are.
Right,
yep, darker. I like them a lot, but they can be.
Yeah, I don't like the feel.
It feels different. It totally feels different.
Yeah, I don't.
A little softer, maybe like a little.
It feels powdery or something weird, right?
Dry or something different.
And then of course there are coated strings, right?
Oh yes, the Elixir End or the. What's the other brand?
Cleartone.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. Which. I actually tend to use a lot of Elixir strings, which I know that a lot of guitar players don't like them because they tend to.
Those feel weird. Those feel weird to me. It's for me. It's not even a tone thing. I don't mind the way they sound. It's the feel.
Oh, I say I love the way they.
Yeah, it's too slicky.
Yeah. I like it slicky. Right. I think that's why I like it.
Yeah.
And what happens with guitar strings is that generally they kind of die quickly in the first week.
Sure.
And then they kind of come back to life a little bit, and then they start to decay.
You get that moment where you break in and then they go, and then you feel like you have tone.
Yeah.
And then they just go.
Yeah, then they start going down. Eddie Van Halen notoriously loved to record with dead strings.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like dead strings though.
Oh yeah?
There's something, maybe it's because the high end's taken off or... Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Well, it might be almost like people who like nickel strings. Maybe
it's
that dulled thing, like staying closer to the fundamental as far as harmonics.
Yeah.
I know you like those. What are the areas that you
like? The NYXLs. I've been using those. Yeah,
they've got that chime in the high end. They got that high end chime
thing.
I think you really like. And
I do, considering I like dark tones. I think that's probably why I like it, because I always set my tones darker, then it adds a shimmer to it, maybe.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because it's cutting through in that dark tone.
Because maybe it's cutting through. I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
So guitar strings, those are the cheapest, most inexpensive way for you to experiment with tone.
That and picks.
That and picks.
I'm gonna say picks too, because go down the rabbit hole. I know it's stupid, but I use a celluloid pick, the classic, just old school Fender, whatever. And you're using those The Dunlops, or
yeah, I use these guys. The Jazz 3s.
The Jazz 3s, but that's not the nylon ones. That's the Delrin, or is that what that is?
I don't know. It's like the smooth feeling.
Yeah, it's like smooth. It's a Tortex. It's like the Tortex.
Right, but here's the funny thing. For years, I played the purple version of these.
Okay, is that the plasticky ones?
Oh no, it's the same exact pick, but it's made in purple. But I've switched to the black ones.
Is it a different diameter?
No. Right. Oh. Guess what? When it's black, it takes more material to make it black, even though it's the same size.
Oh, it's sure. It's denser. It's denser. Yeah. I got you. Okay.
And like if you take them and drop them on the table,
they sound a little porcelainy. They sound like porcelain.
They click louder, right? And I'm like,
they ring,
and I can hear that in my through my strings.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There's a tone thing for you right there. Then that's gonna sound different.
Like years ago, we had gone to school with Paul Gilbert when he was teaching at MI. And at the time, he was, 11 or 12 gauge strings and heavy picks. I think now he uses 9s and thin picks.
Does he use thin or I thought I had medium or thin or something. Yeah, I think so.
Right.
Yeah, well, everybody changes,
We change, but I mean, he doesn't sound that drastically differently now. Well, his tone is much better now.
Yeah, it's different though now because now it's not. Once again, though, I'm not gonna say better or worse because before in the Racer X, the old Racer X days, and the Mr. Big stuff, his gain was coming from the amps. He didn't use pedal boards, and now he's all pedal boards and using like 45s and stuff like that, and that whole PA20s and things.
Yeah, the last time I saw him live, he was using 2 heads on a 412, 20 watt plexi, and a 100 watt plexi. Right. And I think what he's doing is he's using the 20 watt dimed for his rhythm channel. And then a 100 watt dimed
to cut a little more headroom out of that. I gotcha.
Right. Okay. So that's a cool thing. By the way, when we talk about the 20 watt versus 50 watt versus 100 watt, remember that every time you double your wattage, you only get 3 dB. 3 dB is a tiny amount of gain, right? So a 50 watt versus 100 watt, it's really not that much. Right?
I know, people may think so, but here's a great way to reference if you're not sure about this. It's the same difference from going center to pan to one side.
Yeah.
So that difference in volume that you get from when it goes here to there that you sense, that's your 3 dB.
That's 3 dB.
That ain't much at all.
No. Right. So the difference between a 50 watt and a 100 watt, which is another conversation for like we kind of mentioned that when we were talking about attenuators and like that. It's like so the difference between a 20 watt and a 100 watt is about 6 dB.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Which would be about a solo boost. Right.
Yeah, that's a good solo boost. Yeah, that makes sense.
4.5 to 6 dB is about typical.
Yeah.
Right. So anyways, let's continue on. So on strings, please experiment, try
different brands always. Try different brands too because. Like, I don't know if it's true, but for my ears, like GHS and Ernie Balls always seem brighter to me. Diodaros are always darker. That's why I always floated to them. And Dean Markley's are a little darker too.
Yes,
Dean Markley.
They sound more nickel-y.
Yeah, and they actually have a pure nickel core, nickel wrap string too. That's really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they'll find them. I don't know. Guitar Center used to carry them. I don't know who carries them.
Yeah, but if you're fanatical about your tone, that's a good place to start.
It's a good, inexpensive way to start.
And it's a fun experiment because. You can play for a week with one set of strings, spend $10, right? It's a great way to kind of grow and experiment. Yeah. Additionally, lower or raise your strings.
Oh, well, yeah, action setup's going to matter too, for sure. Because, I mean, if your action's too low, though, can be great for legato. Once you start, if you're digging in when you're picking, you can choke those notes.
Yes.
The notes are just going to kind of deaden out against the frets. Even getting a little rattle, I get it. It's not that big of a deal. But if you're doing it and those notes are just rolling off so fast because you got no sustain.
Yeah.
And
it also depends on your hand play. Like I remember once I was in the studio with at George Lynch's studio, right? When he was recording some Lynch Mob stuff. And I'm going through a bunch of his guitars when Steve was tech.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I'm playing a bunch of guitars, right? And like
dollar.
They were so low and thin. I'm like, how do you get any tone out of it? Under my hands, I couldn't make certain notes make a note. They were just like blah 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 blah. Right? You hear George Lynch play it, and it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's right. So it's for your. I still believe that your little height is better, but at the same time, it's how you play.
It depends on the player, right?
So if your action's super low but you don't have those problems, then you may be sort of blessed with a light touch where you can get away with really low action.
Right.
I have an aggressive right hand at times, and I dig in for pulling. So low action doesn't work.
That just sounds like a swap. No, that's not Jason. Yeah. No, he picks hard. He's not.
I'm not. No. So I dig in a lot. So by doing that, it would make those strings just choke off. It's too loud.
Well,
so.
yeah, well, I have lots of friends in Japan, right, who are always like, "Your pick's so loud." Like,
oh God, they'd hate me.
Oh, you're so much. You're louder than me. I'm like, right. Like, you have to tune your strings flat in order to make them in pitch because you pitch them so hard they go sharp.
Sometimes,
right? Yeah. Right. Well, your low string.
My low string.
Right.
Yeah.
So definitely play with your action, play with your strings, and play with your picks. Right.
Oh.
And experiment constantly. And there is nothing that is right or wrong. Please just experiment for what works for you. Right.
Yeah, we're just all Tone Quest. I mean,
and it's just part of the fun, and it's an inexpensive fun, right? And if you're in the studio, definitely consider like having a bowl full of random picks.
Oh yeah, because materials. Oh yeah, we started talking about that. The materials thing, like celluloid. I think celluloid has a very specific sound. What he's using, which is the Tortex, I do believe that's a Tortex material. That has a sound that's totally different. I use that on my bass.
Yeah,
I use those purple ones for my bass. Yeah,
it's like if you want to do 2 tracks, say you have one main guitar, it sounds really good. Maybe your other guitars, right? If you want to do a parallel second track of it, sometimes just I'm going to do it with a thin pick.
Yeah, you'll get a lot of different attack.
Differently, it'll have different harmonic, and they'll kind of they'll conjoin nicely, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember the one band you were in, your other guitar player or singer had a 410 and you were playing a 412, and they just locked like this.
Oh right,
yeah, so cool, right? So it's like, and that's another thing. It's like both of them may have thought a 412 was the best thing, but by one of them having one and one having the other, they really...
It was supersonic. Johnny had a 410 Bassman.
Yeah,
and I had my half
I think it was also alternator.
Oh, yes. Kevin had a 410 Marshall combo with the soldado. That's right. He did. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's a couple times.
Maybe just snubbed it. You only play with 410. Right. So continuing on, next would be pickups.
Pickups,
of course,
yeah.
Right?
That's what I was going to get
Pickups
to.
are not too expensive a way to experiment, alter, and all the electronics around the pickups, right? And
I was going to say, if once again now, these are still... on a grand scheme of things, this is not that expensive an investment. I mean, you can spend a lot of the money on pickups. There's a lot of boutique makers out there that you'll be spending $350 a pickup on, but you don't have to go that crazy if you don't want to. I mean, there's lots of great stuff out there. Monty's pickups out of England, if you want that classic vintage tone, are amazing, and I think he starts around like $90 or $100, American dollars even. Like, it's really not expensive.
That's not that expensive.
No, they're good pickups. They're not expensive at all. I think the fanciest one's like $150 maybe.
Right, and then who's the girl you
and then Sayoko Kuwabara. Yeah, she's in Hollywood. I think hers are about $150 each or something like that. Not crazy expensive.
Right. And those are really boutique, like...
Yeah, these are handmade. These are hand-wound
pickups. You can feel
pickups
special, right? Because as guitar players, we're kind of a little bit of hot rodders.
Yeah,
it's like mine's cooler because so-and-so did it out of their garage. It's like the Sayaka would be a great way to like give it a little tone and a little pride at the same time, right? That's a great choice.
And also, your electronics in general is not a bad... Like, if you're... No, it's not saying things are bad, but if, import guitars, the pots and the wiring, it's never the best. You could do a lot better.
Yes.
It helps. You get... Now, mind you, though, once again, a tone search... sometimes going better in the sense of like getting more fidelity out of something, doesn't always give you the best tone that you may want. Sometimes low fidelity works.
Yes.
But if you have a guitar and you feel like it's choked or it's not getting any kind of there's no zing into it, there's no life, it just feels kind of muted. Sometimes swapping out pots, replacing the wire unto itself is a big deal. Good braided wire, nice like cloth covered wire, old Fender style wire, or if you have a Gibson type thing like an Epiphone, you want to place that, do the braided Gibson, like just do a whole Gibson harness style out of it with CTS pots, the whole thing.
You've done that several of my guitars where you like changed them out to the braided wire, synthetic wire, and it's like all of a sudden it just sounds even if it's just different, right?
Yeah,
I mean, part of the tone quest is like. Maybe
it's not better or worse. Yeah, it's not better or worse, but it's different. It's different. That's really what it is.
So of course play with height. That's another thing.
Yeah, pick up height too. Yeah, because then the closer you get, you're going to get more compression, and notes can sometimes get a little more collapsible. They collapse a little bit sooner. But you do get the attack. Backing them off, they'll open up and ring, and you can get a little bit more sort of control about stuff, but it doesn't have sometimes the same punch.
Right.
So it's a little. There's always a sweet spot in it.
Yeah, and you do have to also be cautious as you raise your pickups, right? You're putting more magnetic pull on the strings.
Yeah, exactly.
Which will cut down the sustain.
Which is an issue for Strats more than anything. Humbuckers don't do it. Single coils do it worse.
Really?
Where, single coil, like a Strat, the Alnico magnets, they're not crazy. They're usually, I think, is that 3s or 4? I can't remember what they use, or 5s. Maybe 5s. I can't remember. But the poles, I always call it stratitis. It happens mostly on 60s, not so much on 50s. The single ply can kind of hold itself, but 60s 3-ply pickups will crack right at the dip on the top by the neck pickup, where the screw holes will crack, and the neck pickup will pop up. I call it stratitis is what I was calling it. And the problem is that then you go and you hit that 12th fret harmonic, and then you hit the note to do the intonation, and all you get is whoop, 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 whoop.
Yes.
Because because the magnet's too close. So you got to watch it, especially with single coils and on the neck position. Because the other thing too is, the tension, the closer you get to the middle of the neck, the softer the tension. So the neck pickup's going to do this, pull on it
has more pull on it.
Right, whereas the bridge pickup's tight back there, it's not going to pull on it. So,
which essentially is how like a Steniac works, right? It's taking the magnetic and pulsing at the same frequency.
Right,
that just happens to be at its own frequency.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But they take the signal and they feed it back through the pickup.
It's an E-boa upside down.
Yeah, but it's in your case, stratitis is more like
that's just bad.
They just stuck at a frequency.
Yeah. So but I'm just saying. So watch that on Strats. It's watch your distance. Definitely more on the neck pickups than the bridge pickups. Okay. Humbuckers, you can get away with it. You can get them up a lot closer. But also to remember, the closer you go to the center of your guitar, so the 12th fret, the louder it gets.
Right.
That's why neck pickups always seem louder than bridge pickups.
Yes.
Because they're not louder, even if it's wound lower, it's because the position's louder. So that's why you always see you'll see a neck pickup usually level on a Les Paul with the bezel, the lower bezel here.
Right.
But the neck pickups,
while we were just looking at your this guy, and the pickups you can clearly
they're huge.
see.
It's a big difference.
So another thing I would bring out is how hard you pick as a tone thing.
Sure.
Right.
They're too hard to choke notes too.
We have both sat with many of high-end guitar players, and one thing that's really interesting is I would say the majority of them, which is the opposite of the Queen Brian May thing we mentioned 10 minutes ago, the majority of them pick loud as crap.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Right?
Paul is really loud. Paul's really aggressive.
And they're like really aggressive with their left hand. Yeah. They're really aggressive with their right hand. And it's like you really feel like they're pulling stuff from the wood. That's right. It's like so
egging it out.
But what I do see is and when I give lessons and I've worked with other guitar players is I do try and encourage. At least when you're rehearsing, when you're in your bedroom and you're playing to the metronome or something like that, right? Play hard, play loud, and try and pull everything out of it. Because then at least the tone is under your control. If you decide to play lower, it's because you want.
Well, you learn the control. You can learn your variances of control.
Right, but push it and find out where that limit is, because there is a tonal difference between somebody who picks like on the edge of their pick. And
true. How much pick you stick in between the strings,
right?
Big time.
And they're just barely.
It's funny. As I've gotten older, I've gotten more pick into the string.
Oh yeah,
because I remember when I was younger, I used to have that little tip, sticking out. You get that harmonic.
Angle is another thing. It's just like there's certain guitar players that they
just straight
through, and some who are doing the pick this way.
A lot of the circle pickers, that fusion thing, it's a very sideways kind of, it's sawed kind of, because you're doing that whole circle picking thing,
right?
Which is,
and that's great because that takes no money. Like tonight, you can sit down and just like
tinker with
I'm going to play soft and I'm going to go flat to the strings. I'm going to play hard and I'm going to go angled. Right? You're going to hear a huge tone difference just in your own, right? Take your little riff and just do it over and over and over in different formats. Now let's go not to the amp itself.
Okay.
Right, so obviously, you can change your strings, and there's a bunch of different things, and please experiment. Go higher engage, lower engage, try different families of strings, try, mixed brands of strings, right? I've seen some people that are like, I really like the low strings from this company and the high strings from this company. It's not typically done, but if you can afford a few bucks, go for it.
Yeah.
Pickup changes is obviously its own huge thing, but pickup changes are great to get into. If only for experimentation, and of course, as Jason mentioned, changing your wiring.
Yeah, if you want to get in depth.
You can change the capacitors. You can change the pots. Right?
I like to do that. I like to change caps. I just changed caps on that guy.
Yeah,
that's right. I just put those other caps
and it'll clear
really
it up.
Dark. They're really dark caps too.
You get to the guitar cable itself. There are, we kind of think guitar cable. I plug in, I'm done. But there are premium cables from some manufacturers, and the more normal cables. And the cable is such an integral part of your tone that that cable alone can do as much as a pickup change.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, right. It changes for highs, lows, all that stuff. It changes. Yeah.
So like some of these $100 cables and stuff like that, right? They're crystal free, oxygen free.
And you're is it giving you more wider bandwidth so you get more lows, more highs overall? Or is it more just taking on the high end, or what do you like? Or is it just depend on the cables?
Like the more recent ones that I've recently experimented with is the new ones from Boss, right? And they almost make my Les Paul shift in frequency, not more highs, more lows, but like the center frequency.
Oh, okay, I see.
Seems to shift to the point where it sounds more Stratocaster with my Les Paul.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
It like moves it up like an octave. It sounds more open, more clear.
Versus just the regular Belden standard switch.
Like to the point of like it's so prominent that I would use their normal cable maybe for one track and that for a different track. It's almost like turning on a pedal, right? Like because we all have like a gain pedal that we use for just like it's like kind of clears things up.
Right. Yeah.
It's funny. We'll send a pedal off to have somebody like Keeley mod it. And it just kind of shifts the tone of that pedal, and we'll spend $300 on doing that.
Right, yeah.
When we could just have a cable that we just switch.
Right, there's that.
So cables can make a difference, and pay attention to it. Guitars are responding to the impedance of the cable and the pull and the draw that it's doing that. So a 15-foot cable versus a 30-foot cable is a very big difference.
It makes sense too because I play majority of Alnico pickups, not high gain. The Belden cable, Switchcraft N style classic cable is just perfect. But I'm also having a lot of higher end. I mean, you get that high clarity from an Alnico thing versus the compression from a ceramic.
Right.
So but if you had a heavy ceramic, heavy dark thing, that fancy cable can really bring some life into it.
Well, yeah, it's like if
that
you
would be different.
You might want to mix and match. It's like you can almost like have a ceramic, which is a little duller, doesn't have the chime on it, right? So use a premium cable with it and get that open and up so they balance out.
Right.
Things become clearer and not as murky. Yeah. And then when you're using a chimey pickup that's Alnico 5, for example, right? Then you use a normal standard cable, which tends to be a little bit blurrier, a little bit more murky. It's to the point of like some of those premium cables, it's like without changing the amp, it's like I'm playing a Fender amp. Change the cable, I'm playing a
I haven't messed with those cables. I have to try that.
I get some in the closet. It's really fun because it changes a lot. And you're like, I change a wire that's this big, and you just change your tone. What do you think if you?
No, I know. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's huge. That's way huge. Yeah, exactly.
So let's go to the next thing that I find is a fun alternative for tone.
What's that?
The speaker cabinet.
Oh yeah, speakers. Yeah.
So first off.
Oh yeah, actually. Yeah, on that same note, Brian at Future Music, he has a deluxe that he changed out the speaker with the new Selection Gold.
Yes,
I do believe, and he is freaking out about it and says how amazing his amp now sounds.
Yeah,
like it from that stock little tiny magnet Fender thing to putting that in there.
Massive tones.
Massive tone shift. So on speakers. Yeah.
Speakers. Well, first off. Let's go one simpler.
Okay.
But still speaker related.
Okay.
Washers.
Washers. You mean the guys that sit there in the sinks and scrub and wash?
Yeah.
Those guys? Yeah. They help with your tone?
Right, you want to wash your cabinet.
You want to wash your cabinet?
Jesus. We're fucking dorks. Right? No, so here's one of the things that I learned from Bogner.
Oh, Bogner, okay.
I was doing some stuff with him, and from an engineering, like if you're designing a PA, it's like super rugged screws that
right. Oh, I see what you're saying.
In there.
I see what you're saying.
And he was very much into the number one you have the screw that goes through to the speaker, and some manufacturers only use a screw. Some manufacturers use a screw plus a washer.
Oh, you like screw the speaker, you put the speaker in. Yeah, okay, right. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay,
and
right.
he was very big on using a C nut, like those little C washers. They look like a C. They're metal. C. Yeah, they're metal, and they've got the little, like, you could bend them.
Oh, and a lock washer.
Yeah, lock washer. Yeah, right, thank you.
Washer.
Right. So
split lock washer.
And he would be the screw, a nut, and then a lock washer. But his thing is not to over tighten.
Okay, right. Well, yeah, it's like a car. You want it to torque it a nice even torque around, right?
Yeah, because what you find is, like, I eventually did a torque wrench and stuff like that, and figured out that, like, around 15, 18 pounds of pressure.
Okay.
On that seat, you'd get more of a thump on the cabinet. You get more of a boxy wood tone.
The tone actually changes for how tight you tighten it?
Oh, yeah. Right? So number one,
apparently Bogner did.
Well, like those times I've taken your 412s and tweaked.
That's true. It sounded really good.
That's what I did.
Okay,
right?
so
number one. So I switched those out, and
it
became more. The box became more alive.
Okay.
It gets a little more character and stuff like that, and you might. So not that it's better or worse, right? If you use like 40-pound, don't go to point where you're bending the metal on the speaker. So like 30 pounds is probably too pressure, right? But if you're rear loaded and you're tightening down your speaker, right, you can easily overbend them, right, and you'll start to get a warp around the metal. Don't do that on the speaker, but put about 30, 40 pounds.
With guitar repairs, it's like that, and doing things in building, it's usually just tighten until it stops. Essentially, and then maybe
one more
just little eighth, quarter.
That's about 15 pounds. That's about 15 pounds.
It's kind of what you do with a neck. Because you'll see sometimes you get guys, you look at a guitar and you'll just see the back neck plate just bent.
Yes, because they
just crank it in there.
Yeah, don't do that.
So you don't have to go that hard. I get you want your neck not to move, of course, but
there is more tone in a relationship than there is in
because at a certain point it goes negative.
Right. Yeah. So and what you find with a guitar cabinet, whether it's a 112, 212, 412, whatever, right? If you put them on there firmly, no lock washers, no springiness to it.
Right. Okay.
It'll start to shear to be a brighter, I would say brittle tone.
Okay.
But let's just say brighter, because brittle is an opinion.
True, gotcha.
Right, and we're not trying to say that our opinion is better than anybody's.
No, it's just what it's actually doing is it makes it brighter.
It makes it brighter,
right? Which makes sense in a sense because you're snugging it really tight to that wood surface. And faceplates, it's usually maple ply.
Yes.
Or birch or faceplate.
Yeah.
I'm with you. So so that's a bright wood. So if you're really logging onto it, you're going to be taking all that what that wood's giving you and adding it to your frequency range, I would imagine.
Now, depending on the wood box you're in, putting lock washers on it, the same thing, where the baffle connects, will also change your tone to be more bouncy, springy, woody, right? And you can get some different tones like that. So, $5 at the hardware store and a few minutes of just like over tighten with springs, or under tighten without, like screw around, and you can get some things.
Interesting.
A little more aggressively, so like me in a 412 cabinet, like if I take a classic Marshall cabinet. So Marshall 412s are interesting. It's like the faceplate, there's a trim on it. Actually, the baffle where the speakers are connected is pushed against this rim that has the cloth between the wood.
Oh, that's right. The cloth. That's right.
So it's buffered by cloth all the way around. It's not a wood connected to wood connection.
That's right. The cloth's in between it.
So what I will often do is I will get drywall screws, and I will put extra screws around the edge. And you did it to my cab. Yeah. But what I'm trying to do in that is not to make the connection better, because I can never seal that wood to the wood.
Okay. Right.
I'm trying to give it more points of communication, so it'll resonate through the screw and go through the cloth.
So more
the other wood.
Gotcha. So more contact. Basically, you're trying to get things to resonate through the cloth.
Because I've done the thing where you've taken like stethoscopes, right, and you cut the end off of it, and you can listen to like the holes and the tones in the wood all the way around, and there's There's a lot.
Fancy.
Dude.
I don't know that.
Ready?
I want to get a stethoscope, see what it does on a guitar.
I've done experiments, and I've listened to the difference of plastic handles versus metal handles, and you can tell in the room.
Whatever you're smoking, we got to get some of that.
Right? I'm not
really?
saying what,
Like plastic and metal handles?
Oh yeah, right.
Wow.
And plywood back on a 412 versus.
I've heard the
wood.
solid versus ply. I've heard the differences in that. And the woods of the ply.
Yeah,
too.
and MDF, right?
Yeah, MDF versus
like most modern
birch ply.
412s are done with an MDF back,
right?
Which you would think that the plywood would sound better or solid wood, but actually I prefer the MDF back.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
so
it's softer, so it may absorb frequencies that are maybe unpleasant. Some low
in general, like the wood
vibration.
box. So in the world of PAs and studio monitors, you basically want the box to have nothing to do with your tone.
Oh, right, yeah.
You want the speaker to be...
It's holding your speaker.
Right, but for guitar players, the wood of the box is no different than the wood around an acoustic guitar. It is actually like, it's not just the speaker, doing this, hello, right? It's the wood on the face, it's the wood on the side. You can actually see it move if you videotape it or do it with like an interferometer, and the back is part of it. So we as guitar players, we are using a very inferior system for our delivery system, which is this wood box. We like it.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, because that kind of goes with the fact of like, it doesn't matter how you get your tone. I mean, you get your tone, and it happens to work. Guys getting their tone with.
Yeah, but the reason amplifiers originally didn't have a back was because you were supposed to stand behind the amp.
Well, yeah, originally, it's true.
And that has become
a great tone.
That's a tone, right? But so a inexpensive thing that you can do is just change how tight you tighten the screws. Whether or not use a lock washer, which gives some bounce or not. And you can kind of experiment with those things. You can add some extra screws around for support around the baffle. Right. Some wood screws in a drill. Put four of those in, and you'll probably hear a difference, and it will probably be, maybe to your liking. Right.
It's all about opinion. Yeah, it's all about.
And then, of course, the next level is
the speakers themselves.
The speakers themselves.
Right. Like I was saying about his deluxe. Yeah, that one speaker just changed the amp so much.
In a lot of ways, like truthfully, if we were to take 10 different amplifiers and play them through the same exact speaker cabinet,
right,
a lot of what we and you would say is the tone of that deluxe or the tone of that AC30 has a significant amount to do with the speaker cabinet that it's in. And if you separated the two and now had some generic non-cabinet,
right, gotcha,
you may not even be able to pick that amp out.
Right, it's completely changed. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Because part of the tone of like an AC30 is the cabinet, the baffle in the back, the short one, the big one.
Because one of the ways that we would traditionally, as a guitar player, would change our tone is get new tubes. Right?
Yeah, that'll do it too. Yeah,
tubes can have a big effect on you. Now,
European, Russian, or Chinese, they all sound different.
They also and the big thing with tubes is gain.
Yeah, gain structure. Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, a tube is a device that adds gain, right? That's its function. And one manufacturer over another, the most significant thing are number one, this one's 3 dB louder than the other one.
Okay.
Right? And that has a big effect on it. Number two is where the clipping rails are will change the harmonic. So this one's bringing out a little more of this harmonic, that one's bringing out a little more of this harmonic. Okay. But it's less frequency response when it comes down to it. They do have some little
because the thing I've noticed when I had this discovery about tubes, oh god, it's been almost 20 years now. My old JMP had some, I can't even remember what they were. What's a popular Chinese tube?
There's J&J.
Yeah, I mean it might have been J&J's actually. Yeah. I think it might have been J&J's. Right. That or Ruby tubes, maybe Rubies or something.
We're J&J.
Oh shit, we are. Those aren't tubes.
We're not tubes.
No, we're not tubes.
But we are breakable.
Aww. No.
Dad joke.
That I took the Chinese one and I had an old Telefunken, like a new old stock. Now I don't know what condition it was in, but I was in. I'm so bad with tubes. I don't remember which way I put it in. If it was the first or second one, if I'm looking at the back of them going that way.
Yes.
So I don't remember which one it was, but the tones, the distortion structure completely changed. Like the Chinese tube gave me a real fuzzy, like gain, lots of distortion, and I popped that telephone, all of a sudden I lost the gain structure, but I just not gained, that's a pun intended, I acquired a mid-range and high mid-range that was gorgeous, that was completely different.
Right.
I didn't have the distortion though anymore. I didn't have that chunk thing the same, but it was amazing tone.
Oh yeah,
like it was totally different and like wow, like night and day of the amp.
Yeah. So you have heard me, and we've even said on this program, right, multiple times, the first tube to distort in a tube amplifier is the last tube.
So, but if you're looking at the back of the amp, I need to make sure I'm right. Looking at the back of the amp, is this the first tube over here? Or is this the first tube?
It depends on the amp.
God dang it. Well, I'm a Marshall.
So your power tubes are, so it's left to right.
So it's left to right then, okay.
I think, I'm pretty sure.
So that means that I changed one of the last two tubes then, I think.
Okay, so, and there's two different places. So here's the thing. He's taught, we want to get a little bit back into speakers for a second. Right. But when it comes to tubes, what you do find is that the last tube is the first tube to clip.
Okay, so that's why I changed the gain stage, right? When I changed the tubes in.
But because each tube adds gain above the previous tube,
right?
The first tube, if it sounds bad, the others keep magnifying it more and more.
Right, I got you.
Right, so what you hear on that first tube...
Unless I changed it when leaning over my amp.
Yeah.
Maybe I did that. Actually, I don't know. Sorry, I didn't even know.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you will usually find that there's usually three tubes in most amplifiers.
Right.
The first tube, its job is pretty minimal, just to get your guitar signal to the right impedance.
Just brings it up, right?
Right. But if you change that tube, it has a significant difference because everybody else is increasing this gain. So it's sort of like a magnifying glass looking back at the weakest.
Gotcha. Okay.
The second tube that usually has a huge effect on you is the third tube, which would be your phase inverter.
Okay.
Right, because that's where you start to clip. That's where you got both stages. That's how it's feeding into the power amp. That one can have a lot of character differences as well, especially depending on where your master volume is.
Gotcha.
Right, and then of course power tubes are just their tone. Right, if you're driving if you want tube tone, your power amps need to do stuff, or why are you using a tube amp?
Right, gotcha, exactly. Right? And you're gonna get tone for structural. For sure.
Bedroom level tube amp playing to me is a challenge unless you're using something to attenuate it and
right.
Like let the power
like what we
do its sexiness. Yeah. So changing tubes is fun. Changing tubes is not that expensive. Changing tubes is
$150 depending.
Well, you can get 12 AX7s for $10.
Yeah, go cheap is just to try a tone because a $10 one may give you a tone you want.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
why not? Yeah. And back to the speaker, changing how it's connecting and physically working with the wood box. That's a great way to alter your tone, and again, inexpensive as crap.
Yeah,
right. You can
cheap way to get into.
If you're willing to throw a few washers in there, super easy. A couple lock washers, super easy. Tighten versus loosen. Don't be as extreme as Bogner. Funny story. So I'm doing this thing with Bogner, and I've got these brand new vintage 30s, and I forget. So the you can have cork or
they usually give you that foam pad,
right? Yeah. I go to the bathroom, I come back, and he's got a screwdriver, and he's ripped all the foam off of my brand new set of vintage 30s. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I wanted to try these. I'm like, but.
What do you want to try?
He wanted to put cork on it instead of the foam. Right? Wow. But I'm like, but you just shred it. It's it's fucking crazy.
Does it matter? Did that matter?
Oh God, yeah. Right? Part of a greenback 25's tone is its cork surround versus a vintage 30, which is its
foam
surround.
Okay.
And so you can add when you buy speakers, often they'll come with those the foam. Usually that's not the front speaker. So most speakers are rear loaded, and some are front loaded.
Sure.
When they're front loaded, they give you that foam in the box. so that you can put foam around the edge.
On the back end, okay.
So it's not metal against wood.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that will have a difference in tone. Also, if you have the option, the difference between front-loaded versus rear-loaded is very different.
It is. Rear-loaded, I prefer much more.
Yes, in general, I prefer all my speakers to be rear-loaded.
My Laney cab was front-loaded.
Yeah.
It put a forwardness of the frequency of a tone.
That front-loaded cab. Yeah,
it did. I mean, the front. I not say front-loaded, but it does. It puts. I think the interference from the wood, because it's sitting back of the cutout.
Yeah, there's two things that go on there.
Yeah, because I remember that about like even Westlake Audio, their monitors were done a certain way because like everything affected it, the screws and everything, the way they did it. It had to sit in a certain way. It was flush level countersunk with the right dome top screws, so then it wasn't square.
Yep.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Well, so the big thing. So if you look at the difference between the frequency response of the same speaker in the same box, front-loaded versus rear-loaded, you will see a lot more girthy mids, 400 hertz and stuff like that.
It's more guitar-oriented,
right?
Really.
Yeah, and what that is that you have a, you know when like you see like remember in school they would talk like about wind and eddy? Yeah. So basically, you get all the mid frequencies get in a wind eddy inside of the
frequency eddy.
Right. Yes. Just in that 3/4 inches of wood, it gets stuck in there. The other thing that happens is that whenever sound meets a 90-degree angle, you think right. You would think that it goes straight, but what actually happens is
it falls out.
Pulls it this way.
Yeah.
So when it's speakers in the back of a cabinet, it splays out this way.
Right.
So you get more high end in the room.
That's why I think it's sounding more forward sounding, because it just literally was forward sounding.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And when it's front loaded, it's gonna like sound like it's like poking you.
Yeah, that's how my cab sounded.
Right. Where when it's rear mounted, it'll splay more and become more of the room. Yeah. And also, it's got more of that mid frequency eddy that's getting stuck in there. And at the same point, I want to bring up something that I am a big proponent of is 412 cabinets, especially not open back cabinets, but 212, 112 closed back cabinets. They have a tendency to beam, right? Which means at some point they become like their strongest point.
Oh, right. Yeah.
A 412 cabinet, a typical Marshall-ish 412 cabinet, beams and like, I think it's 60 or 80 feet out is like, it targets.
Yeah. That's why
when you're playing a live sound, right? We all tend to like be on the stage and tilt into our singer or tilt towards the sound man. Never point it at the sound man who's usually 60 or 80 feet out, because what do they hear?
All of your guitar.
Only guitar, because it went like this and hit them entirely.
Right.
You won't be in the PA at all. So even if that's like the best place on stage and it's like oh crap, it's looking at the sound man, tilt it a little off to the side.
Away from him, basically.
Away from him. You're right. The person 5 feet to the right of him might be going, "Oh, guitar!" Right, but
that's not the sound guy, though.
But the sound guy isn't, and you're in the entire mix.
Because sound guy's your friend.
Yes. And we've said, tip them.
Yeah, tip your sound guy.
Be kind to them.
Yeah, and matter of fact, I'm going to tell you this too, because this is one thing that I've done, and you said, "Oh, it was nice of me," but it is a nice thing to do. If you're like not happy with the tone, you're on stage, the guy's already mic'd it up, and you want to turn up. If you're going to turn up, do the nice and pull the mic back a little bit.
Okay, so this is something that Jason has done before, and I'm like, that's so courteous of you, right? So it's when you're on stage, you have a great tone, and your tone should be for you. Or you're happy with your tone.
Gotta be happy with your tone.
We're like I'm happy with my tone, or you're not, which happens often, right? You're up there and it's like I'm not loud enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So in a lot of our cases, we go up and we turn up the volume, which just screws up the mix that the sound man's been working on. We make it brighter, we make it darker, whatever. It just screws up their mix. So I tend to, I've been notorious for I don't really like my tone tonight, but I'm going to assume that the sound man's done.
Right, which is very courteous of you.
It's doing their job, and I'm just going to endure it.
Yeah.
Right? But in Jason's case, which is the more common thing, which is I'm not loud enough at this moment. I can't hear myself. I can't solo. I can't play. Yeah, right? So reach back and turn up your amp. But he knows that it's going to get too loud to the sound.
It'll piss off the sound person. They'll be angry.
Right? So he first, between songs, will just pull the mic stand back.
I'll do it with my foot. So the guy doesn't really see me. Just grab it, just slide it back, maybe about four inches if you're going to turn up a good amount.
It just slides it back slightly, which will bring the gain, the volume down just a hair, right, and then turns it up.
Because he's going to notice it going up.
Right.
But as long as you don't smack the needle and turn it red and just start, he ain't going to be really pissed. He's going to be like, oh, okay, and he'll turn it down or whatever, do whatever
so
for the PA. But,
maybe Jason turned up his amp 6 dB, but because he moved the mic back and lost 3 dB, he's only went up 3 dB, and the sound was like, what's
yeah, and he can adjust for the PA, that's fine. Now you've got your volume on stage.
But it wasn't a jolt. Like, remember your...
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Right? Best thing ever. It's like what
that was the beginning of a lead boost. I never knew that what a lead boost was.
so Jason and I, back in the early days, we both went out and it was Billy Zoom, right?
It was Billy Zoom who did it.
Yeah. So we both went to Billy Zoom in like 1990. 91.
80. Dude, I had that done on my Ingle, and I got my Ingle in like 87, 88.
Oh, dude, yeah. So
it was early. It was
late 80s.
Yeah, it was earlier. Yeah.
So we both went to Billy Zoom, who was a famous guitar player for the band X.
X, yeah.
And he also did repairs. Right? He did amp repairs and stuff like that. And he used to come to this music store we worked at. And we both had him add a volume boost. It's like, we don't want a gain boost. A lot of amps at the time, like my Mark III, it was a gain boost. It's like, I don't want more distortion. I like my tone. I've got lots of distortion. I just want to be louder.
Yeah.
Right. So we put in
just basically another volume that you can switch between two volumes. One set a little louder.
Which is funny because eventually the guys at the Mesa Boogie store took photos of my Mesa and sent that to Randall, and now they have a patent on that. So that's a
patent whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Right? But so he and I we both had our amps boosted, and you were doing this gig with Mike Shannon, right?
And Roxy.
Yeah, it was a Roxy, right? And you're up there.
And Steve too.
And guitar so he has 2 volumes. He's got his regular volume and his
lead volume.
solo boost volume.
Yeah.
But somehow his solo boost volume was not set like 3 dB, 4 dB, 5 dB, 6 dB. It was like he went from like this entire PA system just went right. It's like all of a sudden we could not hear anything except guitar.
I was happy with it, but apparently not everybody else.
I had a similar situation. Remember that I did some gig for like the military on the base, right?
Oh, no.
Right? And I had a similar situation, right? I was running a Marshall and a Mesa Boogie, and I had this loud boost in, and literally it was like I went up like 15, 20 dB. It's just like all of a sudden it's like there is no band.
Oh, I love it.
All I can hear is myself,
That's right.
and I don't care.
Exactly. The beautiful ego moments of a guitar player.
Right. Surprisingly, I played better that.
That's what I'm saying.
I know. It's like there is some truth to that, right? All right. So let's just kind of recap because we could talk for hours about tone because all of you do. And that's what we're all on. We're all on a tone quest. And the reason you guys are probably watching this is because you're on that tone quest too. Yeah. So, there's inexpensive things you can do just for fun. Like, I don't care what brand of strings you use today. Next month,
something else,
order something different, try it out, see if you like it.
Yeah, you never know.
Right? Just so you can say, I've stuck my finger in that light socket and it hurt and I won't do it again.
Yeah, because I've been playing Diodaros since I started, but I've gone to all the other strings.
Yeah.
And I just ended up back there, so I've just settled on them.
Yeah. Second off, if your guitar is plinky acoustically, right, maybe you need to raise your action a hair.
Maybe a little setup, maybe an X-Bode. Right. There's lots of little things like that too.
Thirdly, you raise or lower your pickups to see what tonal advantage you get, and you're not going to hurt your guitar doing it. So screw with it.
Yeah, do it up.
It's like this is a thing that you can play without hurting anything. So do it. Right? That's a good thing to do. Mm-hmm. If you want to spend some money, of course, pickup changes are really good. And in general, it's a pretty exciting change, right?
It can be, especially if you're you got like I don't know, like an Epiphone Les Paul or something like that, and which is going to have those like by the 490s or something that's going to give you a rock tone.
Yeah,
because it's a Les Paul, so they're not going to give you metal per se, but you want metal.
Right.
So throw in some really high gain, bare knuckle pickups or EMGs if you want that Zach thing. To really. So now it's drastic changing. Yeah. It's drastic changes.
And if you're good at changing them yourself, cool. If not, go see a tech.
And it's not expensive. I mean, usually on a Les Paul, it's like $40. Yeah. Average. I mean, that's just to swap out pickups.
$40. Yeah. For tech. Yeah.
Yeah, for tech to somebody to pay them to swap out.
Sometimes you can do it while they wait. Right.
Yeah. I mean, depending on the guitar, I'm pretty quick at it. If it's a Les Paul, I can do it while you wait.
I've seen you do it in like 5-10 minutes. I'm like, fast. Are you done?
Yeah. What? Strats will always take longer because you got the whole pickguard.
Yeah, right. But so pickups are also a great thing to change. Your guitar cable please experiment with that. There is tonal difference.
Picks.
Right? Picks are different, and of course, how hard or soft you play.
Well, yeah, experiment with the techniques. Right? Technique is always changing stuff. Yeah.
Dig deep, don't dig deep. Screw around with it, and try and stick with it for a week and see if it becomes you.
Yeah,
right?
mess around because, man, I mean, I can't tell you that being, like I said, I've settled on my Silly Red picks probably now since like the 80s, I think, but it was a good long time when I was playing like weird picks and things.
Yeah.
And just, I remember I played some Dunlop nylon picks that were like paper.
Yeah, oh yeah.
When I was beginning, like they were like a 50 or something like that. They were like,
but they're hard to play, but they can sound good.
I know, they're kind of neat.
Right?
Acoustic guitar, they're fun because they get that slappy
acoustic
effect.
especially.
Yeah,
right? And then, of course, you know, tubes are a fun thing to change.
Sure.
Right? Order some new old stock stuff offline. Put them in the first position, third position. Just see what happens. It's inexpensive, and you're not going to hurt anything, especially with like a 12AX7
even
or 12
new old stock 12AX7s are like $30.
Yeah, you can get some fun stuff.
Yeah, it's not crazy expensive.
And then, of course, when it comes to speakers, you can change your speakers. And there's a lot of different options from Alnico magnets, ceramic magnet to. Right,
if you got a 112 or 212, it's not crazy expensive. 412,
it can
get in
be.
that $400, $500, $600 range.
You can change two of your speakers.
Yeah, you can. That's true. You can offset them. Yeah, that's true.
Right. And then, of course, the thing I was mentioning is like, you know, changing just how the speaker is mounted, right?
Yeah.
From lock washer to non-lock washer to those things. So please experiment. If you guys have any good ideas, please write it down below.
If you guys did something that we didn't mention,
share them with everybody.
And if they got ideas that we didn't talk about or something,
or if you have great success with something, please
that's what I mean. Yeah, like put it down, like something that's working for you.
And
never
you know,
try some new shit.
And we're here to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah.
We're here to share what we've experienced and share with us. We're just dudes hanging out, drinking beers, talking guitar.
There you go, telling stories.
All right,
guys.
We should get some rocking chairs and a porch.
Wait for new set changes. All right, guys.
Right. Everyone, I'm Jeff.
I'm Jason. Thanks for watching.
And thanks for watching.
See you guys later. Bye.